Hey everyone, this is a bite-sized algebra video. Today we're going to be looking specifically at simplify and substitution when it comes to basic algebra. Algebra can be a little bit intimidating for some people, and it's usually because it's a mix of numbers and letters at the same time, and it's a little bit like having two different languages being spoken at the same time. The good news is, particularly with the simplify and substitution questions that you're going to be facing, that if you follow some basic rules and you take a step-by-step approach, you should find that if you can follow the method effectively, that the correct answer will come out for you. So we're just going to have a little look at that now, and as I say, there's a few basic rules to follow, so I'm just going to run through those with you first. So when we're simplifying and we have a plus or a minus, we can collect those terms together. So what I mean by terms is the letter or the signifier that we're given. So in the example here, and in the UK, we tend to use pounds and pence, and most of us know that 5 pence plus 5 pence equals 10 pence. And we may well write that as 5p plus 5p equals 10 pen. But someone from the USA doesn't use pounds and pence, they might use dollars and cents instead. So they would look at the same kind of problem. They might write 5c plus 5c equals 10c. So 5 cents equals 5 cents plus 5 cents equals 10 cents. Someone in France or one of the other European countries may use euros, in which case they would use 5 euros plus 5 euros equals 10 euros. The important thing to be looking at there is the symbol stays the same. So when we're adding or taking away like for like things, it's only the number that changes. So that's your first rule. If you're adding or taking away, the symbol stays the same, it's just the number that changes. And it's just a simple addition or subtraction. The second rule is when simplifying, we can't group terms together that aren't the same symbol. So that's very similar. I've put the note here of you can't spend foreign currency in your local shop. So if you walked into your shop and you tried to spend euros or you tried to spend cents, they wouldn't let you do it. It's not legal tender. They'd just ask you what you're doing. Go swap it first. And it's very, very similar in algebra when we're looking at collecting terms together and simplifying. So in a question like 5 pence plus 5 pence plus 5 cents, we can collect the pence together, so the p's together, and end up with 10p, but we can't add in the cents to that particular amount. So we would leave that plus 5c on its own. The third rule is when simplifying and we have multiplication, you can multiply the numbers together, but the letters that are being multiplied, you just place those side by side. So in the example I've given you there, if we're looking at 4p times 5y, we can multiply 4 by 5 to get the 20, but the p and the y, we can't mix those, we can only place them together. So we just put those side by side, so we get 20py. The final rule is more related to substitution, and it's a common error that creeps in with people. And it's just to make sure that you don't drop a mark purely for missing out a symbol. And when we're substituting a number in, we'll be given the value of each letter or a letter. For example, a equals -4 is what I've put there. When you're given that, you just replace any letters with that number. But it's important that you include the minus sign if one is given. So if they provide it, like in this example here, as a -4, you need to put that negative in. You can't just write the 4. So if you remember that most of the time, the right answer should come out for you. So bearing those rules in mind, I'm going to run through a few examples for you, just a few questions, and I'm just going to have I'll talk through my method as I'm doing those, and then hopefully you can follow along. So question 1 we've got here is simplify p plus 2p plus 5p. Now it's not uncommon to see a letter sat on its own like that p at the start there. If you see a letter on its own without a number attached, it's simply saying that it's 1. It's 1p, or 1x, or 1r, depending on what letter it gives you. So in this example, it'd be 1p plus 2p plus 5p. So what we're looking at there is we're just collecting the like terms together. So 1 plus 2 plus 5 equals 8. And then the p's, because they're all the same type, it just stays as it is. That doesn't change. So we've simply got 8p. So just to clarify that on this next line for you, all I've done is 1p plus 2p plus 5p equals 8p. And that's all we're looking at. It's no different than if you were adding the coins together, for example. So in B, we're asked to simplify 2q by 3 times by 3r. So I'm just going to get rid of these dots because they seem to be causing me some issues when I'm writing my answers in for you. Take those off. So when we're multiplying terms together, let's just go back and have a quick look at our rule when multiplying. So when simplifying and we have multiplication, we multiply the numbers together, but then we place the letters side by side. So in this particular example, we've got 2q times 3r. So they're different terms. We can't mix them, so we will have to put them side by side. So the first thing we're looking at is multiply the numbers together. So 2 times 3 equals 6. So 2 times 3 equals 6. And then all we're doing is we're going to put those two letters next to each other. So Q and R go together. So we end up with 6QR. That's it. That's all we're looking at. Next one, we've got question C. So we've got 4s minus 6s. So the first thing we think about when we're looking at this is, are the terms the same? They are. They're both s. So we can just do this as a standard subtraction question. So we can just look at this and say, okay, so 4 minus 6 equals minus 2. And because they're the same letter, because they're both s's, we don't have to change anything else. We can just put the s back in. So we've got 4 minus 6, and then we just keep the s as it is. So it equals minus 2s. Okay? And that's all there is to simplifying. The chances of a division question showing up are nil. I'd be incredibly surprised if a division question showed up. So I'm not actually going to be covering that in this particular video. The main ones that show up will be addition, subtraction and multiplication. So don't worry too much about the division. If anyone is interested in that, which I'm sure you all are, feel free to give me a shout and I can have a run through that with you as well. But we'll move on to some substitution questions now. So I'm just going to scroll back up. We're just going to have a quick look at that rule when we're substituting. So when we're given the value of a letter, for example, a equals minus 4, we just replace the letter with that number, including any negative sign if one is given, or a minus sign if one is given. So just looking at this question here, 2a, and this is a 2-mark question, so it's important to note that this is going to be 2 marks. So they're looking for 2 steps going on here. Just going to take these little dots away again because they tend to cause me problems. So we're working out 4p minus 1 when p equals 10. So there's a couple of things going on here. So 4p means that we've got 4 lots of p. So the same way that 5p is 5 pence, we've got 5 lots of pence. 4p would be 4 lots of pence. So what we'd be looking at is 4 times by whatever p is. So in this case it's 10. So what we can look at is 4 multiplied by 10 equals 40. And then our next step on our next line down, we would do the -1 because we haven't done anything with that yet. So the -1 in the question still sat there. So we're just going to do 40 minus 1 equals 39. Just move that across. So those are your two steps. So you'd actually get a mark for this part here. So being able to correctly identify that 4p should be 4 times by the 10. We've got 4 lots of those. And you get a mark for this 40 here. And the second mark would be using that 40 and being able to do this -1 that's in the question. And coming out with the correct answer, which is 39. That is it. That is all we're looking at. So another thing to bear in mind is, obviously, when we're doing substitution, if two things are together like this, it means 4 times whatever it's telling us. So 4p, in this case, was 4 times whatever p is. So let's have a little look at our next question. So we're working out 8a plus 4b when a equals 2 and b equals 3. So it's a 2-mark question, so we know we're going to need 2 steps. So the first step is going to be substituting those numbers in. So the first one we've got is 8a, so that's 8 lots of a. So we're going to do 8 multiplied by whatever a is. In this particular example, it's 2. That equals 16. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to figure out b. So we've got 4 times by 3. And that equals 12. And then once we've got those 2 parts, what we can then do is put them together as it's shown in the question. So the 8a is 16, and it's plus the 4b, which we figured out was 12. And that just becomes a simple addition question then. So 16 plus 12 equals 28. So being able to do it line by line and making sure that you're kind of splitting up your thought processes does 2 things. One is it stops you getting in a bit of a muddle and getting confused when you're trying to run through these questions. But the second thing it does is it clearly shows those step-by-step working out, which maximises your chances of getting the full marks for that question. So showing it clearly on 2 lines like that makes it very, very easy for whoever's marking your paper to be able to clearly give you both of those marks. So as I say, step by step is your best way of looking at things with algebra, going line by line. Okay, so let's move on to our next question. So we're looking at working out 8a plus 4b when a equals 2 and b equals -3. So the minus is important there. We've got to bear that in mind when we're working this question out. So again, I'm just taking those dots away. So the first thing we do is we substitute in the numbers. So 8a is 8 lots of a. So we want 8 multiplied by 2. That equals 16. And the next bit we're going to work out is the b part. So 4 lots of b. So it's 4 multiplied by -3. Now, if you're using a calculator to work out these things, you should come out with -12. Be very careful that sometimes, particularly if you're feeling like you're on a bit of a roll, that you might forget to write that minus down in that answer there. That can cost you a mark if you're not careful. So just make sure that you're remembering minuses. That's an important one. Once we've got those parts together, we can just write it out with the numbers in now. So whereas our original one is 8a plus 4b, we've now got 16 plus a -12. If we're putting that into a calculator, that should just come out with 4 for you. And the reason why is, as some of you may remember, when we're trying to mix a positive with a negative, the negative wins out. So if we're adding a minus number, it's actually the same as taking away